गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. We are in the second chapter, which is the knowledge of the changeless, and in this we are on the verse number 109. You missed last class, but we will recap. So here the teacher said in 103, that we saw that in the last class, the knowledge produced by an evidence does not differ in its essential nature, whether one calls it eternal or transitory. Knowledge produced by an evidence is nothing but knowledge. The knowledge preceded by memory, desire, etc., and supposed to be transitory, and that which is eternal and immutable do not differ in their essential nature. Just as the results of the transitory actions of standing, etc., the meaning of roots preceded by motion, etc., and that of the permanent ones, not so preceded, do not differ in their essential nature, and there are therefore the identical statements. People stand, mountains stand, etc. So the knower, though of the nature of eternal knowledge, is called a knower without contradiction, inasmuch as eternal knowledge is the same as one produced by an evidence as regards their essential nature. What does it mean? Such complicated way they write it. Can't, even if you read or you speak, you can't understand. So what are they saying? If you have done your little bit of homework before coming here, what was the thought before? What is the student trying to find? What the teacher is trying to tell the student is that the topic is the knowledge of the changeless. So everything that the teacher is trying to tell here to the student is so that his attention goes to that changeless nature that the self is. So here we are using the word knowledge in two ways. One is the relative knowledge and the other is the absolute knowledge. And the teacher is saying, when he says, the knowledge produced by an evidence does not differ in its essential nature, whether one calls it eternal or whether one calls it transitory. Means the consciousness, when it is cognizing this particular object, it is the same consciousness. The I within us, when it is cognizing, when it is gaining the knowledge of a particular object, how does it gain the object? By a thought, isn't it? Is that thought possible without the I? No. Is that I possible without the pure consciousness? No. And that pure consciousness is one without a second. So therefore, whether you take that I to be the absolute, eternal, or you take that I to be transitory, the essence is the same. The knowledge aspect. What does knowledge mean?
A knower and a known.
That's the relative understanding. So knowledge is that.
It is
Huh?
the thing that is knowledge is what you know.
Knowledge of. I didn't say knowledge of, I said knowledge mean. What does the word knowledge mean? That which illumines. That is the meaning of knowledge. That which, in the light of whom some information is possible. That is knowledge. Like in the retreat I was giving the example Teresa. Teresa is one name only. But there is so many things around Teresa that I know about her. All that is information, isn't it? That is possible because of what? Because Teresa is there. That Teresa is there because of what? Because I am there. I am there because of what? Because the truth is there. Truth does not need anything. Truth is the ultimate illuminator. But that truth alone is expressing as the individual illuminator called the reflected consciousness, isn't it? And in its light, all other knowledge is possible. And who is the knower? Is the knower other than the I, the reflected consciousness? No. So will it be true to say that this relative knowledge is already included in the eternal knowledge? Yes or no?
Yes, it must be.
Yes.
Why?
Because all is one.
Good, thank God. Because eternal knowledge means who is the knower of everything. It's the way we approach it. It's a play of words. But these words are the ones which make us confused. So that was the whole idea that was given then. Here the disciple starts an objection. It is not reasonable that the self which is changeless and of the nature of eternal knowledge and not in contact with the body and the senses should be the agent of an action like a carpenter in contact with a axe or saw and other instruments. A regress ad infinitum arises if the self unconnected with the body, the senses, etc. were to use them as its instrument. As carpenters and others are always connected with bodies and senses, there is no regress ad infinitum when they use certain other instruments. The answer to this, the teacher says that agency is not possible without the use of instruments. The reflected eye, the doer, the knower, the seer, the toucher, the smeller, the thinker, the experiencer is only possible if there are instruments. Otherwise it is not possible. Without the body, this knower has got no place to express through. Now where does it go? We have heard about soul and this and that. All those are working theories. That's all. There's nothing like that. That it goes from here, it goes to another body, then it does this, then it does that. Nothing like that. Those are all only theories. What is the definition of a theory? Theory is that which can be changed with new information. Then you got a new theory, isn't it? So agency, the teacher says, agency is not possible without the use of instruments. Instruments therefore have to be assumed. By whom? By whom the instruments have to be assumed? By?
The reflected consciousness.
By us, yes. By us. Why? To think about consciousness without instruments, it is an impossibility. What is that called? Instrument in consciousness without instruments. It will be reality. It will be formless, isn't it? The assumptions of instrument is a course of an action. What is the action? We saw in Taittiriya Upanishad. What was the action? the reality as if desired. That desire led to the reality creating itself out of itself. That is the action. Desire itself is an action, isn't it? In order to be the agent of this action, other instruments have to be assumed. In assuming these instruments, still others have to be assumed. A regress ad infinitum is therefore inevitable if the self, which is not joined with anything, were to be the agent. Meaning, if we have if we say that there is an agent, then we'll say who's the source of that agent. Then we'll say who's the source of that. Like for example, we go through the various sheets and then we reach. Then we say, oh, for relative purposes, we say the individual because there is a total. Then we say, then who's the total because of? Oh, because of the one without a second reality. Take an example. The individual, the wave, it is a part of the total. So cause is total, effect is individual wave. Then who is the cause of the total ocean? The waters. Then the question will come, is there another cause of waters? Yes, we can say there is a cause of water. But in reality, in the absolute reality, there is no cause of absolute reality. And in this manner, nor can it be said that it is an action that makes the self act, for an action not performed has no existence. Nor can it be said that it is an action that makes the self act, because we cannot say that the self acts. Self does not act. Self is independent of all actions, and yet we are saying that the body acts. Action means movement, isn't it?
Is a thought an action?
Absolutely. Thought is an action. Thought is an action. What is the definition of ignorance? What is the definition of ignorance?
Nothingness.
No. That which is, and at the same time that which is not. Isn't it? What is the definition of delusion or illusion? Whatever you may say, isn't it? That which seems to be there but is not there. Like a mirage, like an ornament, like a wave, like a rainbow. They are existing in their own absence. So that which is there and yet it is not there. So same thing, keeping that in mind, nor can it be said that it is an action that makes the self act. Nothing can make the self act, and yet we see that the self is acting as an agent through the body. This is the funny part. This is the funny part. It is also not possible that something makes the self act, as nothing can have an independent existence and be a non-object. Meaning, if reality is one without a second, there is no place that the reality is not there, then how can you say there is an object? Object means that which has a beginning and an end. And reality is self-conscious, self-illuminating, self-existing, always blissful. So it must be necessarily be pervading everything, isn't it? So the idea of wave as a wave is only an idea. It cannot be the reality. Why? At any given moment, the waters are permeating it in and through. And if that definition of water is Satchit Anand, then isn't the nature of wave, whether it has a form or no form, whatever you may believe, isn't it also Satchit Anand? But we are looking at it from perverse way, isn't it? For things other than self must be non-conscious and therefore are not seen to be self-existent. That is our experience. Anything other than the self has to be inert. Everything including sound, etc. come to exist when they are proved by mental functions resulting in the reflection of the self in them. So therefore, that is why this I, this consciousness within us is called a pseudo. It's a ghost. It's not a reality. The ghost on the post. When a teacher comes and tells you, hey, there is no ghost, what are you scared of? The moment his vision is corrected, nothing, one slap, and he suddenly shakes out of his delusion of seeing a ghost on a post on a foggy night. And he was imagining the head, the eyes, the nose, the hands, the legs, and the flowing robe. And the teacher comes, what are you talking about? There is no ghost there. And suddenly after that, first he looks at the teacher or the passing passerby, wise man. He says, if he is not afraid, why am I afraid? One doubt comes. Then the teacher, look, I am going and touching it. Again, and at that very moment, something shifts within him. The whole fear goes away. And he starts seeing the post as a post. So where did the ghost go?
Ghost wasn't there.
So where did it go?
Never go. He is not there.
But he was seeing it.
As an illusion.
This is called Maya. That which is, and yet it is not. But it is not when you come to know the truth. Exactly the same way is this ego also. This agent. This reflected consciousness. As long as you are seeing through a medium. The medium was the fog. Diffuse light. The conditions have to be right. That's when a mirage gets formed, isn't it? That's when a rainbow comes about. Correct conditions have to be there. So what are the correct conditions for this ghost to express? That the body, breath, mind, intellect, equipment has to be, instruments have to be there. But are they really there? That you inquire. And when you don't start inquiring into the equipments, but first you have to accept that these instruments are there, and because of that, this consciousness is able to express. That I am a person who is expressing through these instruments. Now what is this person? When you start inquiring, then you find, there is no ghost. The ghost called ego who was expressing. The ghost is scared. This imaginary person is scared, not the reality. And what do you have to do? From one moment to the next, you come to know the reality. But here what they are trying to prove is that this changeless principle behind all the senses, all the instruments is the reality. It itself is the reality. And there is, really speaking, there is no agent. That agent is called an agent only when it starts identifying with this instrument. The moment this instrument is disidentified with, at that very moment, the eternal, changeless Brahman starts expressing through this. Rewind. This eternal, changeless Brahman is not expressing through. Cannot. It's everywhere. It's the only thing that is. It's one without a second. So, don't take all the what the senses are seeing, don't take that to be the reality. The senses don't have a purpose of their own. So, here it says in the next verse, one apparently, one different from the self and possessed of consciousness must be no other than the self that is free from combinations with other things and existing for itself only. So who is this one? You can take it as reality, but if you take it as reality, then there is no further dialogue possible. So here we'll take one as the Ishvara, the total ocean, the total consciousness. And how does this, so when you take that as Ishvara different from the self and possessed of consciousness must be no other than the self that is free from combinations with other things and existing for itself only. Now, who is Ishvara?
Total consciousness.
No, our understanding of Ishvara is expressing through the instruments but not a slave to them, isn't it? That's why we call a God man a God man. God meaning Ishvara. Living in the same world, expressing through the same body, but he is called a Bhagavan. Why? He is not a slave to those instruments anymore. Nor can we admit that the body, the senses and their objects exist for themselves inasmuch as they are seen to depend for their existence on mental modifications resulting in the reflection of the self. Meaning, the senses do not exist for themselves. What is the purpose of senses? Seeing, hearing, teaching, the seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, tasting, smelling.
Experiencing the
Really?
manifest.
Really? Think. These are all answers learned over the years. Think. What is the purpose of senses?
Gather information.
Correct. They cannot do anything unless they are not prompted by the mind behind. Not self, mind. A dead man also has the 5 instruments of perception, but they are non-functional. Correct? The thinking. They have got no purpose of their own. Why the mind is only, the eyes are looking only at you or sometimes at you or sometimes at her or sometimes at the camera? Is it because the eyes are making the decision? Eyes cannot make any decisions. It is the mind behind which is making the decisions. And that mind is being prompted by the eye behind, which is using the instrument of discrimination, that everyone should be given attention. Isn't it? So, and these senses also depend on mental modifications resulting in the reflection of the self. Self can reflect only on a surface, isn't it? Mind is no mind if there are no objects. Right? If those stimuli are coming in, there is no mind. And self cannot reflect if there is no mind. You cannot think of nothing. So the whole agency that we are talking about, agent meaning the ego, the reflected consciousness, it can reflect only on a surface, isn't it? That surface that we are talking about is the Vijnanmaya Kosh or the intellectual sheath. But that intellectual sheath has come about, or body, breath, mind, intellect have come about with including the 5 organs of sense perception and 5 organs of action. Why? Because complementary world is there which it can cognize. They are they are complementing each other. If there is no world, you cannot have a body, mind, breath, intellect. You cannot. If this instrument is not here, there is no world. Recognize this. Disciple. But no one depends on any other evidence such as sense perception, etc. in knowing the body. So true. You never think about that I am seeing the body, therefore I am. I am listening to the body, therefore I am. It is a naturally accepted fact that I am the body. That's it. Nobody has taught you since childhood that you are this body, you are this body, that you have got 2 legs, that you have got a head. No, every every being that is expressing through an instrument automatically accepts. Teacher says, yes, it is so in the waking state. Yes, that true. That you are this body is natural and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to use your sense perceptions towards that. But that is true only in the waking state. Then, but at death and in deep sleep, the body also depends on evidences such as sense perceptions, etc. in order to be known. Similar is the case with the senses. It is the external sound and other objects that are transformed into the body and the senses. The latter, therefore, also depend on evidences like sense perception, etc. in order to be known. I have said that knowledge, the result produced by evidences, is the same as the self-evident, self-effulgent and changeless self. What does this last line mean? It is the conclusion of the Taittiriya Upanishad. At home everywhere. Meaning the outside and the inside. The world of objects and the instruments of knowledge are not other than the self. Are not other than the self. I forgot one person in between. The ghost also. The ego, the I also, the reflected consciousness also. All that is nothing but self. The disciple says, again another objection. What is the doubt now? It is contradictory to the state of knowledge, to that state of knowledge. It is contradictory to state that knowledge is the result of evidences, and at the same time it is the self-effulgent self which is changeless and eternal. Here the student is having a very problem that the knowledge that is gained through the mind because of the presence of objects has to be necessarily other than the self that you realize. This is the problem of the student, that when I realize, and this, because of this we go through fear that we will lose all our relations, then I don't know if this world will be the same or not. No, better I don't pursue the self, then I can remain and enjoy my relationships, enjoy the misery. The reply given to him is this: it is not a contradiction. How then is knowledge a result? It is a result in a secondary sense. Though changeless and eternal, it is noticed in the presence of mental modifications called sense perceptions, etc., as they are instrumental in making it manifest. Remember, in Taittiriya Upanishad it came, Sakamayata, it desired. Who desired? The reality desired, isn't it? And that reality from itself created itself. So, from itself, the Absolute created itself, the creation. So, there is no place, no part in this creation which is not pervaded by the reality. How? Just like space is pervading every aspect of this creation, isn't it? Without space, this creation is not possible. You go into any atom, you will find 99.99999% space only. But we don't give space that much importance. We give that which has a form, that we give more importance. So here the teacher is saying that in the secondary sense, that without the sense perceptions, this reality could not have manifested the objects of the world, the sense perceptions. Because if sense perceptions were not there, okay, you have the ego. Suppose a person is blind. Can he see the world that that is expressing out there? Can't. Suppose another person is deaf also, blind and deaf. His experience of the creation has become reduced. Then not seeing, not hearing, and not tasting also. Now, another big problem, isn't it? So in order for the reality to express, it expresses as the reflected consciousness. That reflected consciousness uses the senses, uses the organs of action, uses these instruments in order to cognize the world, which is not other than the self itself. But the student is still dilly-dallying on this information. He is not firm on it yet. It appears to be transitory, as mental modifications called sense perceptions, etc. are so. So, our knowledge, one moment I have the knowledge that this is Teresa, another moment I have the knowledge that this is Stanton, another moment this is carpet. It's continuously changing. So it seems that the ego is also, the reflected consciousness is changing, isn't it? This is our experience. But remember, in Panchadashi we have done, in our various Upanishads also, this thought always comes. The I thought, creation is I thought and that thought, isn't it? I thought remains the same, that thought keeps changing. But because this I thought has identified with that thought, it seems that this I thought is also changing. And he who believes that I thought is changing is called the deluded one. I thought never changes. You are there all the time. Let someone call you mother, let someone call you wife, let someone call you sister, let someone call you whatever. But you are the same. But because you identify with that particular role, then the problem begins. As I, there is no problem. But when that I identifies with seeing with the sense perceptions, then then there will be, I like to see this, I don't like to see this. Why? It has got identified. It is not pleasing, not to this eye. It is for this reason it is called the result of proofs in a secondary sense. So that same pure reality, that same eternal consciousness is itself called the agent, because it owns these sense perceptions, and as a result creates a dialogue with the objects. Disciple, now this is after this whole chapter and the previous one. First chapter was a method of enlightening the disciple. There whatever was told, and now in this, the knowledge of the changeless, how the teacher has systematically brought his attention. Now what is the understanding of disciple? Sir, if this is so, now this is the conclusion. Independent of evidences regarding itself, eternal and changeless knowledge. So, excuse me, independent of evidences regarding itself, eternal and changeless knowledge, which is the consciousness of the self, is surely self-evident, and all things different from it and therefore non-conscious have an existence only for the sake of the self, as they combine to act for one another in order that the events of the universe may continue uninterruptedly. The student has understood this. Did you understand what he understood? You have the books, na? You should bring it so you can read. Independent of evidences regarding itself. The self does not need any evidence in order to prove that it exists, correct? Itself, eternal and changeless knowledge, that is its nature, which is the consciousness of the self, is surely self-evident. I have understood, I have come to this conclusion that it is self-evident. And all things different from it. So what will be everything other than the self? The not self. Yeah, which is the world, the creation, whatever. From where on? The bliss sheath, the God, the total mind, the total everything other than that, isn't it? Here anyway, God and all that doesn't come in this text. So all the five senses and the rest of the world is not self. And all things different from it, and therefore non-conscious, have an existence only for the sake of the self, as they combine to act for one another in order that the events of the universe may continue uninterruptedly. So everything that is other than the self, which is equal to not self is existing only for the self. Correct? Without the self there will be no not self. But that not self is just apparent. It is not reality. And why it is continuously interacting with each other? Why is the agent, the ego, the reflected consciousness, why is it continuously interacting with the five sheaths? And through the five sheaths, the various aspects of the world? Why?
The wrong identity.
No. Why? But it is happening. The phenomena is always taking place. Why is it taking place? So that the creation continues to grow, happen. Not grow, but happen. This phenomena will not stop as long as the knowledge of the self does not come about. Understood this part? Now continuing. It is, now the student says, it is only as the knowledge of the mental modifications giving rise to pleasure, pain and delusion that the non-self serves the purpose of another. The not self cannot take you to reality. The world, the body, the breath, the mind, the intellect, and including the bliss sheath, they cannot take you to the reality. Why? Why they cannot take you to the reality? Because all these have a beginning and an end. They are a product. They are born at some time and they will end at one certain time. That which is limited, that which is conditioned, that which has a beginning and an end cannot know the eternal. But it is functioning because of the eternal. It seems so. So what is their purpose then? Only comfort, discomfort. Only breath level, hunger and thirst. At the mental level, pain and pleasure. At intellectual level, discrimination or honor and dishonor, joys and sorrows. So all this only goes in the two, the opposites. But knowing all the joys and sorrow, knowing all the opposites that this creation is made up of, will that be equal to knowing the reality? No. In Taittiriya Upanishad it came, the whole creation is like on the entire ocean, on the entire expanse of waters. Waves are continuously dashing, and one drop from some wave dashes up, crashes against the rocks and again merges back into the waters. That one drop is equal to the total creation as compared to Brahman. So what is it's next to zero, next to nothing. That is why in our Bhakti Shastra also it is said, the whole creation is only like the tip of the toenail of the Lord. That's all. How big the Lord is then? If it is, the creation is only the tip of the toenail or corner of the toenail. It is only as the knowledge of the mental modifications giving rise to pleasure and pain, delusion of that the non-self serves the purpose of another, and it is as the same knowledge and as nothing else that it has an existence. Just as a rope, snake, the water in a mirage, and such other things are found to be non-existent, except only the knowledge by which they are known. So the duality experienced during waking and dream has reasonably no existence except the knowledge by which it is known. So the waker, dreamer and deep sleeper are known by some person. Because we have never inquired, therefore we don't come to know. Important thing is inquire, who am I? The whole not self is only because of the self. So having a continuous existence, pure consciousness, the self is eternal and immutable and never ceasing to exist in any mental modification. This is the conclusion that the student has come to after having listened to the teacher, raised his doubts, got some clarifications. This is the conclusion. It is only an intellectual appreciation right now. The modification, it is one without a second. The modifications themselves cease to exist, and the self continuing to do so. Because the modifications have stopped existing or expressing, does the self stop existing and expressing? No. Why? How do you know? Have you an experience where all the modifications have stopped and you have still existed? Have you got an experience?
Sleep.
Deep sleep. Right. In deep sleep, all the modifications have ceased and you still continue to be. Just as in dream, the mental modifications appearing to be blue, yellow, etc. are said to be really non-existent as they cease to exist while the knowledge by which they are known has an uninterrupted continuous existence, so in the waking state also they are reasonably really non-existent as they cease to exist while the very same knowledge continues to do so. This is the biggest hurdle that the student goes through. If you can understand this, fantastic. Never inquire only into the waking state of experience. Always take the waking, dream and deep sleep as one experience, and then you inquire about the self. By knowing the self but yes, the self can be accessed only in the waking state. Why? Because the thought modifications are comparatively slow, but still too fast for many. In dream it is so fast you can go through lifetimes. We read a story at the retreat. You went through how many? 3 yugas. 300 years. 400 years. Isn't it? In one sitting of meditation. Then his father was looking for him. He was also in samadhi. When he woke up, he found his son, only bones on the side of him. So he went looking, he asked, where is my son, where is my son? Then the gods revealed to him. Then he went looking, and then he told him, you are this. You please leave that body and enter this body. You are actually this one, not that one. But that is all possible only in the relative. So here when they are saying that just like when we wake up from a dream, the dream stopped. It had a beginning and it ended. But we continued our existence on the substratum on which the dream was taking place, that substratum continued, and now the waking is taking place, waking experience is taking place. So there was no break in the substratum, there was a break in the experience, but not the break in the subject itself. Recognize this. And it is continuous not only in the waking, the dream, but also in the deep sleep. But we feel that yesterday's waking state is continuing today. This is our problem, isn't it? Why don't you take the dream, yesterday's dream, and continue it today? Does it ever happen to you? Maybe for some intelligent ones, smart ones, they hold on to the dream and it continues. Why don't you hold on to the dream? Why you only hold on to the waking? It's an absolutely new experience every morning. And yet, morning, I have to go to work. Oh, have you gone to school? Oh, have I given food to the cat? If all those familiar things are not happening around, you will feel lost. You don't feel lost in the dream. In Mandukya Upanishad, this dream, under the dream there are two subtitles. One is the dream that you are dreaming, and other is the waking dream. This waking experience is also another dream. Just like when we wake up from the dream into the waking state and say, that was it was not real, it was just an imagination. When we wake up from the waking state on the seat of meditation or while studying scriptures, at that very moment, there is zero value given to this waking world. And that waking world includes everything. Your relations, your jobs, your bills, your body, your mind, your concepts, your emotions, your ideas, your intelligence, everything is given zero value. But you have to wake up for that. Don't give zero value. It will automatically happen. A wave has to die in order to recognize that it is water. Wave means that water which is identified with its birth and death. That is called a wave. And that wave which is disidentified with its birth and death and its form, naturally, alone can come to know that it is water. How? Directly, without a thought, without an experience. As that knowledge has no other knower, it cannot be accepted or rejected by itself. Which self? As that knowledge, which knowledge? This substratum, which came to know that there is a waker, that there is a dreamer, that there is a deep sleeper. That knowledge has no other knower. You cannot come into the waking state and as a waker say, I want to know that which was knowing the deep sleeper. I know someone was there, otherwise how can I come to know that there was no thoughts? Now I want to know it objectively. Again a problem. He doesn't realize, the waker, that whom he is trying to search is, it already is. It cannot be accepted or rejected by itself. So neither it can reject itself, neither it can accept. Then what has to happen then? If it cannot accept and it cannot reject?
That's the one.
Huh?
Is the one. That is the one.
So if it cannot accept, it cannot reject, then what? That is the state of equanimity, where there is no acceptance and no rejection taking place. We are not just, when we say the world, how do you know the world? Only by thoughts, isn't it? As long as there is one thought and you are yo-yoing. But if you are not accepting that there is a thought, you are not rejecting any thought, then what are you? You are the witness. Straight away you fall back into yourself. Independent of all conditionings. Independent of all relationships in the mind. Independent of all thoughts. As there is nothing else except myself, the aim of my life is fulfilled by your grace, O teacher. That student has come to this conclusion. Very simple. All that, the only point of concentration of this student was on the sense objects. He thought he could see through the senses, the knowledge gained through the senses is other than the knowledge of the self. That was his problem. Because all the thoughts that are happening in our mind, when we use the words, you have to be thought free in order to know the reality, isn't it? This is initial stages, we speak like that. But in the end also you continue to speak like this, it will become a problem. So we have to understand that every knowledge, any knowledge that you gain, essentially it is nothing other than the knowledge of the self. Why? Because there is only one without a second. So you cannot reject the world, you cannot reject the mind, you cannot reject the senses, you cannot run away from anything. And this was the topic of our Taittiriya Upanishad. At home everywhere. Anywhere you go, there you are. तथैवेति एषा अविद्या यन्निमित्तः संसारो जाग्रत् स्वप्न लक्षणः तस्या अविद्यायाः विद्या निवर्तिका इत्येवं त्वम् अभयं प्राप्नोषि नातः परं जाग्रत् स्वप्न दुःखम् अनुभविष्यसि संसार दुःखान् मुक्तोसीति. The teacher says exactly correct. What conclusion you have come is exactly right. This is exactly so. It is ignorance due to which the transmigratory existence consisting of waking and dream is experienced. It is due to ignorance that you are seeing the multiplicity. And that multiplicity is expressing as waking, dream and deep sleep and the world therein. It is knowledge that brings this ignorance to an end. It is what? Knowledge of what? Knowledge that knowledge is only one. It is not two. You have thus attained fearlessness. You will never again feel the pain in waking or in dream. You are liberated from the misery of this transmigratory existence. Om iti. The disciple says, yes sir, and sits quiet. So whatever the conclusion the student came up with through the various dialogues with the teacher says, yes, that is exactly right, the conclusion that you have come to, that this self is one without a second, that this self cannot be accepted and rejected, that there is nothing. When the student says there is nothing else except me, myself, very good. This whole name and form, the whole I and my comes up only due to ignorance. And he or she who has recognized this knowledge as the self, for such a person there is no fear. Fear is born only where there is duality or multiplicity. Where there is another, there is fear. Today, because I consider him to be other than me, so I have fear. At this moment, what thought is coming? If he stops taking care of the website, fear. then what will I do? I'll keep pleasing. Next thought, fear. If she stops cooking, what I will do? Fear. Now, this is how we behave in our world, isn't it? Fear of death, fear of our near and dear. If they pass away, then my life will be empty. Then what will happen? Where there is another, there alone the fear is. But if we become equanimous in our life, in our daily living, equanimity means living an awareness. Only a witness can be aware. And that witness can be caught, not when we are involved in action, when we are witnessing the action, when we are equanimous, when our mind is not swaying, when it is not judging, then when it is not desiring, when it is not wanting, when it is not reacting, when it is not agitating, when it is not frustrating, remains in the center. The moment it comes to the center, immediately witnessing starts happening. There is no, oh, now I have become a witness. The moment you say I have become a witness, it's gone. Either you are or you are not. So in this manner, the one who has become a witness, then nothing in this world will ever sway that witness, isn't it? Because witness is neither attached nor detached. The witness is neither accepting nor rejecting. That's why he is the witness. Not involved, not giving value, not saying, let me see what's the next thought that is coming now. Nothing like that. Then what's the point of living life? It will be when there are no joys, there are no sorrows to experience, then what is the point? Then suffer, enjoy this duality. Or come to this equanimity, live as a witness and inquire the nature of this witness and then live in truth as we are supposed to live. Such a person alone can be fearless. Otherwise it's not possible. So the student says, Om iti. Yes, sir. And now, what we have studied for the last everything from the beginning till now, the essence of that, summary, gist, precis, that is given, and that topic is taken as a repetition. I guess we can conclude that also. We'll just go through it. Mumukshunam upat punya kshapana paranam apurvanupachayarthinam parisankhyanam idamuchyate avidya hetavo doshaha vang manakaya pravritti hetava pravritescha ishtanishta mishra falani karmani upachiyante iti tan mokshartham. This method of repetition is described for those who aspire after supreme tranquility of the mind by destroying accumulated sins and virtues and refraining from accumulating new ones. Ignorance causes defects. Defects produce efforts of the body, mind and speech, and through these efforts are accumulated actions having desirable, undesirable and mixed results. This method is described here so that there may be a cessation of all these. This is chapter 3 and it's titled Repetition. And the topic that is being mentioned here is what are we doing the repetition of? What are the salient points that we must remember in our daily living, in our practice, so that we continuously are in touch with who we really are. We don't have to read the whole book for preparation. When you have some pointers, so these are the pointers. So first is that those who aspire after supreme tranquility of the mind by destroying accumulated sin and virtues and refraining from accumulating new ones. So it is told that if you are wanting to know the truth, you have to make the mind calm. Why the mind is not calm? Because of the duality. What is that duality? Likes and dislikes, raga, dvesh. What else is there? The virtues and sins. Sins are because of what? Because of the actions that you have done in the past. And those actions that you have done in the past, they form as every action must give a result. So what is the result of that particular action? Either favorable or unfavorable result. It comes as an impression. So if that is the conclusion, then how should I be living right now? In such a manner that no action of mine, where at the level of speech, at the level of mind, thought, speech and deed, that is at the level of body, it should not create a new impression. If you start living like this now, because that is where you have to reach. Prepare in this manner. And the defects in the mind are created due to ignorance, and these defects are nothing but desire and aversion. Raga, dvesh, we can say, likes and dislikes, very simply put. And they give desirable, undesirable and mixed results, meaning virtuous, unvirtuous or mixed. And we don't want any of these three. If you live your life as a witness, then there will be none of these three. No result. Why? There is no owner of the result. That I did the action. I thought the thought. This method is described here so that there may be a cessation of all these defects. As they are so the whole process that we did from the beginning till the last chapter, knowledge of the changeless, it was so that these defects of raga dvesh. Again I'll tell you how raga dvesh come. Anyone can repeat? How do likes and dislikes get created?
Sense perception.
No. How do likes and dislikes get created? The ladder of fall.
Desire.
But a little bit different.
Desires. Desires.
Then first there is attachment, then there is a desire, and whatever you desire, either you like it or you dislike it. And these likes and dislikes continuously keep your mind in motion. Nothing else. Objects cannot make your mind in motion. There is no problem in seeing the objects, hearing the music, hearing the sounds. But to create, I like this sound and I don't like that sound. I like this, what I see, and I don't like that, what I see. This creates the oscillation of the mind, which creates stress, which creates tension. After becoming equanimous, you don't stop seeing through the eyes. After realization, a realized master doesn't close his eyes and run around, walk around the world. He still has his eyes open, isn't it? So what is the difference? He does not have any likes and dislikes. So from an ignorant person and a realized master, who is in between? The one who is witnessing. So witnessing means the person is in the middle. He's not oscillating. Oscillation means I like this thought, so I'll get identified with it. I don't like this thought, I will stay away from it. It's again a desire. See how we fool ourselves? Remain non-reactionary in your mind continuously. That is why the whole topic was brought out. As they are perceived by the ear and other, is that correct? As they are perceived by the ear and the other senses, the objects called sound, touch, sight, taste and smell have no knowledge of themselves or of other things. Transformed into the body and other things, like brickbats, are known to lack in the said knowledge. Moreover, they are known through the ears, etc. Being the knower, that by which they are known is quite of a different nature. For connected with one another, those sound and other objects are possessed of various properties such as birth, growth, change of condition, decline, death, contact, separation, appearance, disappearance, cause, effect and sex. All of them produce various effects like pleasure, pain and so on. The knower of the sound and the like is of a nature different from theirs, as it is the knower. So the gist of this whole paragraph is same as what we came to the conclusion in the last chapter, and that is the knower of the sound, the knower of the touch, the knower of the smell, etc. is not the one who's identified with these smells, with these experiences. He is the knower. Knower itself signifies that it is other than the known. He is separate. But we live our life as if we are in identification. Not we are in identification. Not with one thing. We keep creating more and more identification as we move through our life. This has to be stopped. Understand, it is the knower itself and not the relative knower. It is the absolute knower. When you remain as an equanimous, in equanimity, then it is the absolute owner. Distressed by sound and other things experienced, the knower of Brahman will thus practice repetition. Why practice repetition? Why a knower of Brahman has to practice repetition? It's like once you know swimming, you can never forget it, no doubt. But say after some time you jump into the water. Initially there will be fear. I have not swum for so many years. Will I be comfortable when I go into the water? Will I float? After jumping, then it will be okay. But initially there will be doubt. If you have learned how to drive a car, you have been driving for so many years and now you have stopped. And then after 5-10 years again you start. Or even after few days you start. There is a doubt in the mind, isn't it? That will I be comfortable to drive on Delhi roads? I've driven here, I know the roads, I know the traffic has increased, but the discipline has improved. But will I be able to drive? That one thought is enough to create fear in your mind, isn't it? So when we keep repeating again and again, what? That this knowledge that I have gained, that this knowledge is not a temporary knowledge, it is the knowledge absolute itself, and that absolute is expressing as the experienced, as the experiencer and the experiencing, as if, I must add, apparently so. Keep reminding, otherwise little bit the mind clicks in. Just like the water must continue to flow. If it doesn't flow, what happens? It gets stagnated. It starts stinking, isn't it? That stink is called identification. That stink is called the ego, because of which likes, dislikes, pain, pleasure, again the mind you go into the duality. But when you keep reminding yourself again and again that you are essentially the divine self, who are the creator, meaning the transcendental cause and the efficient cause, and as well as the material cause, so to speak. Maybe one day you will start believing it. Right now you have made yourself to believe that you are a mother, that you are miserable, that you have problems, because you have believed them so. But when we start believing contrary to this about our immutable nature, maybe one day we start living like that then. What's the point of continuously? And that is why we must continue to keep coming to the satsang, so that we are reminded again and again, again and again. That's why we take satsang, so that we are reminded again. Repetition. Same thing has been said hundreds of times. But how many times do we remember exactly what is to be said that time? Distressed by sound and other things experienced, the knower of Brahman will thus practice repetition. And what will be the practice? I, who am of the nature of consciousness, not attached to anything, changeless, immovable, imperishable, free from fear, extremely subtle and not an object, cannot, for the very fact of my being not attached, be made an object and touched by sound, meaning by the five senses in general, or its special forms such as the notes of the gamut, praise, etc., which are pleasant and desirable, and false, terrible, insulting and abusive words which are undesirable. So there is no loss or gain due to sound. When they say sound, also with the rest of the senses. Therefore, what can sound, pleasant or unpleasant, consist of praise or blame do to me? Pleasant or unpleasant sound, regarded as belonging to the self, glorifies or injures an ignorant man on account of discrimination. Clear? If you identify with the sound, then there will be praise and dishonor, insult. But it cannot do even the slightest good or evil to me, who is a man of knowledge, meaning who is remaining a witness. These ideas should thus be repeated again and again, again and again, meaning contemplate on the essential nature of the self, which is Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarup, which is eternal, ever pure, ever free, and that I am. But when we sit in the meditation, straight away our attention goes to, oh, I became angry today, I must not get angry. Today I ate more, I should not have eaten so much. Oh, today I didn't take bath, I should have taken bath. Today I made another person angry, I should not. Oh, today I did not do exercise. Oh, I did not sit for meditation today. All these thoughts are worthless. Worthless. Because they are only talking about the not self. The only exercise that you can do in order to come and establish in yourself is thoughts of the self. And all the thoughts of the self are open thoughts. Eternal, you cannot give it a form. Ever pure, you cannot give it a form. Infinite, you cannot give it a form. Omniscient, omnipresent, all-pervading, all-permeating, you cannot give it a form. Such thoughts are thoughts of the self. This is knowledge of the self. Keep repeating these to yourself again and again, and whatever is meant to happen, that will click in. Whatever has to be dropped, it will be dropped at the right time. Similarly, no change consisting of gain or loss can be produced in me by touch in general or its special forms such as fever, colic pain and other such diseases, and coldness, hotness, softness and roughness which are unpleasant. Again, pleasant touches connected with the body or brought into existence by external and adventitious causes can likewise produce no change in me, inasmuch as I am beyond touch, like the ether when struck with one's fist does not meet with any change whatsoever. Now first he took the sound, now he is taking the touch. Touch again, there are soft touch, hard touch, crushing touch, pleasant touch, unpleasant touch. All this he says I am not affected by. Why? Because I am beyond touch. And how I am beyond touch? Like the ether. When you punch into the space, there is no ripples in the space. What you feel will be the air, but you will not feel the space change. Now next one with sight. Likewise, as I am entirely unconnected with sight, no good or harm is done to me by it, either in its general form or in its special forms, both pleasant and unpleasant, such as ugly sights. So what are all these verses telling you? That he has come to the state of equanimity. Correct? Similarly, independent of taste, I am not harmed or benefited by it, either in its general form or in its special form, such as sweetness, sourness, saltiness, pungency, bitterness and astringency, though accepted as pleasant or unpleasant by the ignorant. That is why you see many Mahatmas, whatever food you give, they will just mix it together so that there is no individual taste of various dishes. Then the idea in mind will come, oh, this was nice, can you give me some more of that? Why? I liked it. The moment you liked it, there is some dislike automatically created, isn't it? So whatever you give them sweet, you give them sour, you give them pungent, you give them dal, you give them bread, everything. Ramana Maharshi used to eat, mix everything and just eat it up, gulp it. And in this way, before when it was talked about taste, because equanimous, Neem Karoli Baba, a great master in Almora district, I've been to his ashram. His disciple was a drug addict who wrote his biography. Drug addict, he came and sometimes used to still practice. Baba also used to sometimes take the not snuff, drug, but not any, just the grass. In the cold weather, they are used to it. But Neem Karoli Baba was always in bliss. So one day he saw this fellow a bit dazed. What happened? I had the temptation of taking this. What is that you are taking? He was taking LSD tablets. He said, how many you got? He took the whole bottle from him and gulped it down. One tablet is enough to make you hallucinate. He gulped down he put the whole thing in his palm, put it into his mouth, chewed it and finished. Now this fellow was scared now. Now Baba will go because of me. You can die. But nothing happened to Baba. And he was surprised. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours. One day, nothing has happened. How come? Why? He did not identify with what he had taken. Simple. So if you don't want to create unwanted effects within your body because of certain foods, remain equanimous. Just eat whatever comes and finish it off. If you react to any stimuli, then a ripple will be created. If you don't react, there is no ripple. Thus, I who do not consist of smell cannot be harmed or benefited by it, either in its general form or in its special form, such as flowers, fragrant pastes, etc., considered to be pleasant or unpleasant. For the scriptures says that I am one who am eternally devoid of sound, touch, sight, taste and smell. From the sun's point of view, there is nothing called heat and light and darkness. Even though its nature is only heat and light. For whom? The deluded ones. Similarly, from the self, which is the final illuminator, from its point of view, there is no existence of seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, tasting, or those stimuli, because it doesn't need any outside source or outside knowledge, if we want to use the word knowledge in a limited sense, to know it. It is self-knowing. It is self-effulgent. Moreover, sound and the other external objects that are transformed into the forms of the body, the ear and the other senses through which they are perceived are transformed into the forms of the two internal organs, the intellect and the mind, and also into those of their objects. Now the expansion is being said that the sound and the other external objects that are transformed into the forms. We have seen in many places, even in Taittiriya Upanishad, the sound itself became the various objects in the world. So how did it become? The sound became the space, air, fire, water, earth. The tanmatras of that, the essence of those 5 great elements went into making the body, breath, mind, intellect. Isn't it? The mind, which is made out of the sattvic portion of these 5 great elements, the moment this mind is created, at the very same moment, the objects have to be created so that the mind can interact. See? So this way the student is contemplating. For they are connected and combined in one another in all actions. Mind without objects and objects without mind have no meaning. They both came at the same time simultaneously. It is not that you were born and the world was there before. For whom? This is the question. No, it was not there before. The moment you were born, at that very moment your world began. It was not existing before because you were not there. Because this knowledge is not to be taken as general knowledge. This has to applied on yourself. It is your own personal direct inquiry. Yes, when I was not born, this world was not born. When I was born, then the world became born to me. Was it existing before? I don't know. Before I was born, I don't know where I was. No, they say I was in another body. Who cares? I can't remember. I can only go with the information that I have at the moment. When this is so, I who am a man of knowledge have no one belonging to me as a friend or a foe, nor have I anyone indifferent to me. Anybody, therefore, who wishes to connect me with pleasure or pain, the result of his action, through a false egoism, makes a vain effort. For I am not within the reach of pain or pleasure, as the Shruti says, it is unmanifested and inscrutable. Meaning, you try to make a friend out of a Mahatma, out of a wise man, you will be the biggest fool. Because he is equanimous. He is only responding to situations, spontaneously, intuitively. And he is not, the individual is not there, that also the totality is functioning. So don't put such type of connotations on a wise man. Similarly, I am not changeable by the action of any of the 5 elements, as I am not of an objective nature. The self cannot be changed or be affected by space, air, fire, water, earth. Because self is the subject itself. How can the objects ever affect it? Therefore the Shruti says, therefore the scripture says, it cannot be cut or burnt. This comes in Bhagavad Gita is not the Shruti. It cannot be it is in Bhagavad Gita. Na jayate
Wind cannot reach it.
The water cannot wet it, the sword cannot cut it, the wind cannot dry it, the fire cannot burn it. In the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the first few verses itself it comes. The merit or demerit arising out of good or evil done to this combination of the body and the senses on the part of those who are devotional or adverse to me will be theirs, but will not touch me, who am devoid of old age, death and fear, as the Shruti and Smriti says, it is not pained by omission and commission. So the merits and demerits, any person, he is like a, in this verse he is saying, he is like a mirror. Anyone who comes with good thoughts to him, they get reflected back to him. Anyone comes with bad thoughts to him, the bad thought gets reflected back to him. The result of every deed must give a result, isn't it? Every action must give a result. So with what attitude you are coming to do the service to a master, the results of it will go back to you only, because he is equanimous. He is neither taking any good out of it nor expecting any bad out of it. He is in the middle. You want to do it, do it. Like when I was in 96, 95, when I was in Himalayas, Swamiji was there, and after the long walk 28 kilometers to Gomukh, we came back and we were staying at the Bhojwasa, and the whole path was very rocky, and Swamiji was coming in Khadau. Khadau means the wooden sandals, and Swamiji was in that, and he couldn't walk in those anymore. It was starting to hurt him here. So he started walking bare feet, and he got tired by the time he came back. So it can be tiredness, it can be whatever, but when he was sitting down, I got a big pot of water, hot, so that he could put his legs in the water and relax. At that time I asked him, Swamiji, there is some hot water, please put your feet in the water. He says, if you want to put, you put. I said, so I took his legs, put it in the water. Then I said, should I massage? If you want to massage, you massage. Then I massaged. Then the water was getting cold. I said, all the benefit that he was getting, that will go away, because he was tired, but at the same time he was very alert, because he had told me, call everyone, we are going to have class in 10 minutes. After that 24 kilometers walk, in 10 minutes he wants me to go and call everyone for the class, for satsang. So I said, Swamiji, the water is getting cold, I think you should take the feet out. He says, if you want to take it out, you take it out. And I was absolutely raw. I didn't know how these Mahatmas behave. Then I said, Swamiji, he might catch cold. So I said, Swamiji, you should wipe. If you want to wipe, you wipe. I thought, funny man, is this the person I'm going to study with for 2 years? But totally equanimous. He didn't care. In the beauty, in the contemplation of that whole walk, he was totally with himself. My words were like, I can say that I am concerned, so these are good words from my side. From another side, now when I look, I may be saying, oh, they might be disturbing him. But that is my conclusion. He is in the center. He doesn't want, neither he does not want. If you want to do it, you do it. The onus is upon you, not the onus is upon me. If I say, I want, okay, that was such a nice hot water, can you please put my, immediately impression, isn't it? Hey, water is getting cold, you forgot to take my feet out of the water, again another impression. This is the alertness that is required to be in the center. Just quickly we will conclude. Unborn, comprising the interior and exterior, and it is beyond the pain felt by the people and unattached. The supreme reason why I am unattached is that nothing really exists except the self. As duality does not exist, the portions of the Upanishads regarding the oneness of the self should be studied to a great extent. And with this, here ends the prose portion of 1,000 teachings written by the all-knowing Shankara. Who Shankara? Adi Shankaracharya. So with this, the only thing we should contemplate, read, is that which establishes you in the self. What establishes you in the self? A single pointed mind on the nature of the self. Keep repeating that. That is the repetition that is required. And with this type of preparation, with this type of background, now the part 2 of this 1,000 teachings of Shankara begin. And now again introduction is there. Now how to go, then this we will see from next time onwards. Now some very beautiful topics are going to come. Each one succinct in 4, 5 verses, 10 verses, 15 verses, a topic is taken and dealt with entirely. Let that be negation, let that be affirmation, let that be about mind, let that be about the reflected I being the absolute I in its essence, about negation, about superimposition and desuperimposition, about so many different topics are there. About right knowledge, about dream and memory, about impossibility of being another, and this way we will see all these things as we go along. Now we get into the poetry part. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.